The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and staff of Guardian Network.
And welcome. No, the music there. And welcome to Guardian Radio AM. Today is Tuesday, April 4th. I don't have my calendar. Erin, what today's date is?
Today is Tuesday, April the 4th,
yes,
2023.
Thanks very much. April 4th, and it's a little after 11 o'clock in the morning. Once again, this is C.A. Newry, and I shall be your host today. And of course, you can hear that Erin Green is with me as she joins me as we talk about poetry. April is Internationally Poetry Month, and we have a number of gifts that we plan to give out, right? We have a couple of books that was donated to Erin to make available to the Bahamian public, so we're kind of excited about that. But on the other show that I joined Erin on, we were talking about the possibilities of having a literary festival and the possibilities of what we can do to include Bahamian books, Bahamian stories into tourism. So this segment of the show is going to be geared towards that as we celebrate Poetry Month, as we give away the book by Patricia Clinton Miracolis, as we lobby for things that the government and we as Bahamians should do regarding poetry and literary works. This is what we're going to be concentrating on. But we started late, so we want to start off with a question, because we have a lot of giveaways. And the first question is, Patricia's book is called Luska and Other Fantastic Tales. First person to call in, text in. Calling would be easier for less reading. First person to call in and say, what is Luska, will get a copy of the book. And the second question, call in and say, it can't be the same person, of course, right? The first person to call in to say, when was Internationally Poetry Day?
Let me read the question, Mr.
Thanks.
You know, I trained to be on Jeopardy. April is Poetry Month.
Go ahead.
But what day is World Poetry Day?
Okay.
April is International Poetry Month, but what day is World Poetry Day?
So there'll be our two questions. Conversation about poetry. What can we do? And as we also discuss the book Luska and what it's all about, right?
Right.
Good. So let's starting off with the notes, right? And the idea of a literary festival. On the other side of the show, on the clock, right? You mentioned there possibly being a reading downtown where tourists can experience stories. I wanted to hear that more about that as we put that in and go to the call of what is waiting on us.
And I think our literary sphere is as impressive as our Junkanoo expression and display, right? But you can't display books and literature the same way that you display Junkanoo and music. And so we have to bring the literature to the tourists in the same way that we bring Junkanoo to Bay, right? And so I think mind you, we already got two literary festivals, Mr. Newry. I don't want C Words Literary Festival and Patricia Clinton Miracolis and Nico Miracolis are both, I think, if not founders, integral parts of the C Words Literary Festival. And then there is the Blue Mingo Literary Festival hosted by the University of the Bahamas. And so I would ask both of those entities to pull together, right? Mm-hmm. To help create a framework for a literary experience in the parks.
But how important is location? Because I know those two festivals are popular right now for Bahamian, especially at the UB University one. But should we consider moving something downtown that, and I hate doing things just for tourists, right? But
Right.
to have them have access to Bahamian books.
Right. And so I want to use the presence of the tourists to support the expansion for Bahamians, right? So we both win. So I want it near town. I want it near the tourist spots, but I don't want it on Paradise Island, because then that becomes restrictive for a lot of young people in particular, right? They ain't going to Paradise Island unless they're going to the beach, and you can't go to the beach on Paradise Island unless you got car. Bernard, I think, would be a wonderful spot to do that. If you got the right amount of canopies, we already got a lot of trees on one side of it. I would even use the beach stadium and man the pedestrian crossing so people could move back and forth across the road and have it right there. Pompey Square is a great satellite spot as well. And, there's already the writer's porch. Let's go to that caller. There's already the writer's porch at Arawaki.
The writer's porch. Oh, nice. Yeah, I haven't even thought about that. Okay. But let's go to the caller. Let's see if they have any of the answers here. Producer, patch the caller through. Go ahead, caller. Can you hear me?
Hello?
Go ahead.
Yes, Luska?
Yes. The question is, what is Luska?
That's an old sea monster found in Blue Hole.
More information than that in order to get the prize.
In Andros?
No, more information. Do your best. Do a narrative.
Okay. Could I go with the other question then?
Man, this is a good question. We have a number of callers. But call us back and I'll let you go with the other question. Okay? Go ahead, caller. Caller, I can hear you. Go ahead. Okay, I got to hang up, caller. Sorry about that. Yeah, so the two questions are, what is Luska? And just get a narrative that, say you explain it to a 10-year-old and they never heard about Luska before. And the second question is, I guess, when is the International Day of Poetry? But let's continue the conversation. You wanted to give tourists access to Bahamian stories and Bahamian books. Go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, man. See, we have to find a balance. We don't make art or culture for tourists. We make it because we can't do anything else but do that. And then tourists can come and enjoy it. But we're so small. We're such a small population that you're not going to sell 1 million records in the Bahamas, even if you got the hardest song history of the Bahamas. So we can benefit from the presence of these tourists. One of those is purchasing, right? If the Ministry of Tourism say they're trying to bring 10 million tourists in a year, then that's 10 million potential customers I have. But it's also 10 million networks that I can build, right? To take my product to the world.
Nice.
So I may not need you to buy it. I may need you to tell your friends about it. I see we got another caller.
Yes, we do have another caller. Producer, patch the caller through. Go ahead, caller. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Turn down the radio for me, please, and go ahead.
All right. You only talk about Foxtel. I ain't hear nothing about Gambia or Adelaide.
Mm-hmm.
All right. You say you all need entertainment for tourists. Why not have loose tours, bring the places, and wait until they love themselves? We have plenty of places that the tourists can come and enjoy themselves. All you need is police protection. Come on. Just bring the drunken back to life.
Okay, caller. I appreciate that. And the caller is again lobbying for inner city communities in general in the Bahamas to be involved in culture and be involved in tourism. As we discuss the importance of poetry in the Bahamas and the importance of literary stories and having the tourists have access to it. But Aaron, I'll ask you this. How important is having a poet laureate as we celebrate International Poetry Month? Is there a poet laureate of the Bahamas? We're having the 50th independence celebration. Is there a grand poetry competition? We have a number of famous poets, international poets here in the Bahamas. But
all right, so
go ahead.
let me get to last first and then go back to the caller, right? About Adelaide Gambia. So I think we have a poet laureate. I looked online and couldn't find an official designation of a poet laureate. What I did find was that H.C. Christie, I think, died at the age of 64. He was designated Poet Laureate of the Bahamas and was a government officer for nearly 30 years. That is the only thing I could find online in the limited time I allot for research, the night before. But I had actually looked for this before, this is not the first time I've done the search and I couldn't find anything. Now, a birdie whispered to me that they think that Mr. Gilbert Morris was appointed the Bahamian and is the most recent Bahamian Poet Laureate. I haven't seen any official designation, nor have I seen in the calendar of events for the 50th independence an event that is focused on the Poet Laureate. However, now, the Independence Secretariat did recently announce the winners of the 242 poetry competition for primary school, junior high school, and senior high school students for the 50th independence under the theme, One Nation, Our Legacy, Our Future. They made the announcement. I cannot find the names of the winners. I cannot find a document releasing the short list. Like you got all these applicants. This is the short list, and in due time we'll announce the winners. I can't find nothing, nowhere, and I'm very disappointed.
So I pray that list come out soon.
Yeah, because, like you say, there should be definitely, if you didn't have one before, a poet laureate for 50th independence. The people should know who the poet laureate is. The people should be familiar with their work.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they aren't, you had, from the time that the person was appointed to the 50th independence, to inundate us with their poetry.
Mm-hmm.
A festival would be a great time to do that. But the whole idea I had with this particular weekend literary festival is you're going to have 70 to 80,000 people moving through that airport, which means you should have a good 20,000 people in downtown area for the whole weekend all the time. And surely they're going to need places, if not just to stop for a few minutes to figure out what they're going to do next and something while they're doing that.
But usually when it's holiday, downtown tends to be closed. I don't know if any much can happen between Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday.
Well, see, if businesses knew that there would be people in town, then they could budget to pay that overtime pay that they know that they are required to pay by law their security companies if they work their staff on holidays.
Yeah. I see we get our text line is getting inundated with responses, particularly regarding Leska. And I see this person is close. Now, if they call and say this, I would have given it to them, right? But the answer that we're looking for in detail, they haven't given it on Texas yet. But like I said, if this texter actually call and give us this particular answer, I would still give it to them if they did call. But the texter, we need more meat. And the questions again is, because we have prizes to give out, we have about 3 or 4. One is, what is Leska? Luska. Call in and say this is what Luska is. Identify a particular part of Luska. Boom, that's the answer there. And the second one is was International Poetry Day, and boom, get an extra prize. And I even going to throw in a third one. I'm going to throw in a third one, Aaron. And the third question is, name me 3 popular Bahamian poets, not the persons that you know, but I mean the persons that you say, okay, everyone who had a name say yes, that's a poet. We know them. Give me 3 of them you could call off on top of your head. Bang, that prize is yours. But continue with the conversation, Aaron.
All right. I got a copy of Luska in my hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I got 3 books in my hand, right? One is from, I would say, because this poet is a part of the BJC or BGCSE examination, right? Their work. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to read the name of the book, not the name of the poet, to give the audience a little support.
Go ahead.
The name of the book is Perspectives from Inner Windows. Right? And then I've got a book in my hand
I know the author.
By a Greek Bahamian called If I Had the Wings, Short Stories and Poetry. And then I've got a journal in my hand, volume number 2 from 2006, the School of English Studies, the College of the Bahamas, a student journal called Tamarind. You remember that, Mr. Newry?
Yes, I have all those books. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying. And so I've got some of there's a whole bunch of poets in here. I can't name the poets' names, but I will name some of the poems. The people will get them. One is called I for Teaching, and I know you know the name of the poet. One is called True Bahamian. One called Mother Sick Dread. One called Limerick. Wow, this is just fantastic, Mr. Newry. I just grabbed 4 books from my bookcase before I hopped along to my computer.
Uh-huh.
And so, I got a bunch of books. And I'm not even a poetry aficionado. Mm-hmm. You know, there are tons of Bahamian writers. If I can, just for a moment, here are some young poets and creatives that took part in the BAIC Creative Nassau Bahamas Pine Islands Project Seawords Poetry and Video Contest, which promoted the Cascarilla plant and the silver top palm. Mm-hmm. I mentioned them last year in the competition, right? And the winning contestants for poetry in the 10 to 15-year-old category is Daily Grace, mm-hmm. Elizabeth McCartney, and Jamia Simonet took top honors for their poems in the 16 to 21 group. No, let me rephrase that. So Daily Grace and Elizabeth McCartney, I think, won in the 10 to 15 group, and Jamia Simonet took top honors for a poem in the 16 to 21 age group. And then Waynisha Saunders, Jasmine Benaby were chosen for the video competition in 16 to 21 age group, and Ashton Newbold won in the video category for 10 to 15. So that's another poetry competition. Daily Grace, Elizabeth McCartney, and Jamia Simonet are 3 young poets in the Bahamas. And then taking place in Grand Bahama, mm-hmm. part of the 50th year independence celebration, the Grand Bahamas Independence Secretariat is hosting a classroom and bulletin board decoration competition under this year's theme, One Nation, Our Legacy, Our Future.
I must commend the people in Grand Bahama, because definitely the Ministry of Grand Bahama is pushing the Independence Day celebration. Every other week you hear something in lines of the celebration that they're doing.
Yeah, man. And you remember they had the naming 50 roads for 50 project?
Yeah.
With the Port Authority in Freeport. Mm-hmm. I think that's going to be fabulous. And I want to encourage Grand Bahamian artists to partner with the ministry and the Port Authority, because every new road should have a poem written to dedicate it.
You and your ideas. Awesome.
And look here, this is like a federation in my head right now. These are things that we've seen happening throughout the Caribbean.
I see we have a caller. Go ahead. I see we have a caller here. Let me patch the caller through to see if they know the answer. Go ahead, caller. Can you hear me?
Good morning, guys. How are you this morning?
Doing well.
Well, to my understanding, Lusca is one of the largest species of octopus found in the blue holes here in the Bahamas.
Man, that's close enough.
Pardon me?
That's close for the answer, but I ain't Lusca.
That ain't Lusca?
Now, you
No,
sure,
but that's
Mr.
close.
Newry?
Yeah.
Lusca is an octopus. But it's a giant
what I like-
species of octopus.
Hey,
What
close.
I like about
You
his
can go
answer,
research it yourself.
It's close, Iron. But that ain't the answer
I
we're looking for.
partly grew up in Andros, so I tell you what is called Lusca.
But Lusca is also a creature of myth in the Bahamas and by extension the entire Caribbean. So it has a particular look.
I mean, the one the Lusca that is throughout the world it looks like a serpent. The one you're speaking about. But it also looks like a squid, like a giant squid also.
Call, I appreciate this answer, but that's not the answer we're looking for. But
Okay,
it's close.
No problem.
Thank you very much.
Dear caller, as one Androsian descendant to another, what I appreciate is that it's real. He don't believe it's real. Mr. Newry don't believe it's real. But
It's like the
your
Chichani.
answer.
Yeah, but I tell you, the answer close. We have another caller there. Richard, pass the caller through. Go ahead, caller.
Hello?
Go ahead, I can hear you.
All right, this question for Aaron.
Go ahead.
Aaron, I'm not just talking about Fox Hill.
Yes,
I am
yes.
saying to you, in Grand Bahama, we had every day there was a function going on every day. One day, Sunday, is West 10. The next day is 8 Mile Rock. The next day is Seagrave. The next day is on the beach. And every day there was a function that people can go to enjoy every day of the week. You trying to find out things for tourists? All you have to do is set up a junk canoe group for every day and every settlement and get Lewis tours.
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah. So let's move on to the next caller. Go ahead, caller.
Well, I'm back again. Okay, what about the mermaid? It's a species that look like a shark and a mermaid, and also an octopus.
I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to give it to you because I know you was vexed and you went to Google and find it.
I have no choice because I know for years Lusca was called a giant octopus-looking type creature. But you're right about the mermaid part of it also.
Okay, so a Lusca,
Yeah.
right, as part of what it is to be Bahamian, is a shark
Right.
that has octopus legs, 8 octopus legs.
Yeah.
And this particular creature,
Looks like a mermaid.
yeah, and it attacked ships during the 16th, 17th, and 18th
Right.
century,
You're absolutely correct.
right? And that is along with a number of other mythical creatures that are part of our folklore. This plagued the entire Caribbean and the Bahamas. In fact, they said that Lusca is likened to the Kraken of the Greek mythology, and that when you see Lusca comes, so caller, leave your name and number with the producer, and we'll leave the prize at the desk for
Thank you.
Okay, let's
Now, listen,
move. Go ahead, Aaron.
Before you go on. So, what we do know about the Lusca as well is that Disney made a movie called Luca about a little boy that lives near the sea and he has a secret. And the secret is that Luca is half human, half animal, half sea animal. And that's our story. That sounds like the story to Lusca to me because the gentleman insists, and you didn't fight him, that it's not just a shark and a squid or an octopus, but there's a mermaid transformation element in there as well.
And let me even add to that, Aaron. Most of our mythical creatures in these Andres, and a number of these mythical creatures are Seminole Indian based. And so when the African Seminoles came to Andres, they brought to the Bahamas a number of shape-shifting animals, like the chickcharney, the mermaid, the garland, are all North Andros Seminole Indian mythical creature stories that we have adopted into our culture.
Mm-hmm. I like it.
But we have another caller there.
My people.
And I have one answer via text. I'm going to read that to give them a prize too because they won. But go ahead, caller. Can you hear me?
I'm on.
Yes, you are on live.
Calling to answer the question for World Poetry Day.
Go ahead.
Is it March 21st? Or was March 21st?
Go ahead, Aaron.
That's the correct answer, March 21st.
Woohoo. Thank you.
So leave your name with the producer.
Okay.
And we'll have your prize at the front desk.
Okay, thank you so much. Thanks, Aaron.
You're welcome. You are welcome. And thank you to Patricia and Nico McCollis for providing the books for the giveaway.
And via text, with the text ending with 3897. 3897 is our winner. And the answer they gave was 3 poets' names, which was Vera Chase, Telsine Turner Roll, and Patricia Glinton Miracolis. So that number would ends with 3897. Get surprised, and that prize will be left at the end of the show.
Mr. Newry, if I am not mistaken, Ms. Vera Jane Chase passed away last year, right?
Yes.
Yes. Before I could have her back on the show, I think the first time she came in her capacity as a civil servant, essentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't get to talk about as much as I wanted about, I think, her own work. And we talked about the project that she was working on with the Commonwealth Writers. But the Commonwealth Writers of the Bahamas, I think, have access to a space at Arawaki. Mm-hmm. I think they call it either the reading porch or the writer's porch. And that would be another space in which I would have a small literary event. But you see what the gentleman who was calling out Adelaide and Gambier, right?
Yes.
I really appreciate his point, and I appreciate why he insists, because we keep forgetting them.
Mm-hmm.
Not just us on the show, everybody. We just keep forgetting them. It's like we want these places to be our Bahamians, and not just every Bahamian, like us bougie, upper middle class, lower upper class Bahamians, and upper class Bahamians. We want those to be our private spots, like our little bit of rustic. And we have to figure out how to bring balance. How do we give these small communities the autonomy, the agency they need to be able to have self-determination, at the same time preserving the most important historic and cultural elements, and then letting people live and do what they want, right? Like, how do we bring those things into balance? But listen, for Adelaide, you know what I would do?
Go ahead.
I'd set up a formal camping space. I appreciate the callers say, you got to make sure you got your police. Security is a big issue. Until we can prove to community members and people on the outside that this is a project that is beneficial for the whole country, until we could do that, we're going to need to have a high level of security. But there's a lovely little patch, I think, that's between a share of publicly owned and privately owned land between Coral Harbor and Adelaide that is the perfect spot for a massive camping facility where guests, they could be booked in the hotel and then they book out for a night or 2 nights and they come camping.
I just want to say that Boys Brigade has a campsite on Adelaide Road, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it's being used. I'm just saying that they have a campsite. You see it on the main road, welcome to Boys Brigade campsite, something like that.
Right. So there's some quote unquote facilities already in place. A wonderful cruise package. If there's a short cruise through the Caribbean, 3 or 4 days, first stop Bahamas, last stop Bahamas, trust me, if I was out of town, I may first stop in Bahamas, get off in the Bahamas, go camping, hang out in the Bahamas for 3 days. When my cruise ship comes back, get back on the cruise ship, head back home. Right?
Aaron, we also have another texter that gave 3 ports, and these ports wasn't called this yet. And one of the port that they listed impressed me because it's an old book. It was one of the first books I purchased as like early 1981. The 3 ports they named was Nicolette Bethel, Susan Wallace, and Robert Johnson the Road. And I'm not sure if you are familiar with the Road. Anyone who collects poetry books, anyone who reads Bahamian poetry will always declare that the Road might be perhaps the best poetry book ever written. And it's something, a collector's item, because those are print. And that number is, last numbers is 1589. So that person also will win a prize, and we'll leave that prize at the concierge desk at the Guardian also.
All right, that's awesome. So let me read some names from what I have here.
Go ahead.
So Perspectives from Inner Windows is written by Cheryl Aubrey, former judge. And I got a copy of that here, and I think this is... Then, we've got Marion Bethel. We've got Asha Lalawatu Raming. Then we got Pat Raming. We got Helen Clanaris. And then I'm going to read.
Go ahead.
Go on.
No. I was thinking that we might have to give out more prizes, and I might have to come by you and collect some more books and have someone give us some more names. But that's good. I appreciate you informing the public of how many women we have who are published poets. I'll even go as far as to ask who is the most published Bahamian poet, and that is a question. And I put that as a question and leave a prize. Whoever can call in and say who is the most published Bahamian poet will also win a prize. You call in or even text in, and the person will win that prize.
Do you know the answer?
Yeah, I know the answer. I just had dinner with them last week. I published 45. What 45? But 35 Bahamian poetry books.
Send me the name by text, and I can.
No problem, I will.
Go ahead. I think we underestimate. Like if you were not on the poetry scene, you would have no idea how many not just talented poets, but poets recognized across the globe. Right? Recognized by academic institutions. In fact, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs hosted an event, I think, or facilitated an event for World Poetry Day, and Tanisha Pratt recited for the Prime Minister, the Office of the Prime Minister, for World Poetry Day. If I tell you, I want to say shout out. Social media is great. I was reading a post by a poet who was thanking her friend and sort of celebrating because her friend was a teacher teaching about Bahamian poets. And here was this list of Bahamian poets, and she was on it. Yeah, that's who I thought it was as well, sir. I'm not going to say it out loud. I'm not going to say it out loud. But that's a good question. Who is the most published Bahamian poet out there? So Tanisha Pratt performed, recited for the Office of the Prime Minister. Sonia Farmer is a prolific, well-renowned and esteemed poet across the globe. But let me read some of these names, Mr. Newry, from this 2006 volume, A Student Journal from College of the Bahamas.
And Aaron, I want you to read them. But go ahead, caller.
Yeah, I would think Pat Raming is the most popular poet that we have today.
I love Pat Raming book. I have that home, but no, he is not the most published poet in the Bahamas at this present time. But thanks for that.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead with your names, Aaron.
Hadassah Hall wrote a poem, Nightlife in Nassau, is featured in this journal. Chevette Black, Paul Taylor, C. Alexander, Simone Sweeting, L. Sherman Young, did I say Shannon Bethel, Ann Cartwright, Lamero Wright wrote Mocello, Regina Beth Brennan, True True Bahamian, Sharano Joaquin, Consider the Consumer, Natasha Ruffin, Sonrisa, Patrick DeVoe, Melissa, Sharano Joaquin, A Conversation With, Alfred Williams, Tava Romaine, Kay Mortimer. I'm wondering if that's Kareem Mortimer, also film producer, and I think director of Children of God in Chicago. V. McKenzie, Colleen Nixon, Nicolette Burrows, Kenneth Mortimer, V. McKenzie again, and Camille Smith.
Nice.
That's just one student. That's just one student journal. Then we've got a poet by the name of Zanzi Bethel. I mean, she is just a phenomenal young poet. And I think she won the 2019, and that would be the inaugural Tiffany Austin Award from University of the Bahamas at the Flamingo Literary Festival. I mean, it's prolific. And I know plenty women poets, not necessarily as many male poets as you may know, Mr. Poet Aficionado.
Can you imagine? But there we have some more calls now to patch through. Let me let the calls go through. Go ahead, caller. Can you hear me?
Hello?
Hello, go ahead. Go ahead, caller.
Is it Mia Pratt?
No, Mia Pratt is not the most published poet at this present time. But good answer, by the way.
66.
But I will research that. Research that.
If you found it to be true, you could put my prize at the door, please.
Well, of course, I will definitely.
She, as far as I've seen, she has 66, the most poet written in the Bahamas.
Poetry books published into the Bahamas?
Yes, sir.
I will research that. That's interesting. Okay. But Aaron, let's take a short break. And I see the callers on the line. Just bear with us, and we'll come back. Okay? This Guardian Radio in the AM, and we'll be right back.
Thursday until April 6th between 5 and 6 p.m. is Come Gold With Us Thursdays. Follow us and like our Facebook page, 50th Carifta 2023. Then keep a lookout for our team and get a chance to win a golden ticket and many, many more giveaways for the 50th Carifta Games 2023. For more details, email info@carifta50.com or call 808-GOLD.
Girl, you see how Cora eye look funny, all black up yesterday?
But she say she bumped into a wall when she's running after the churn them.
Yeah, but last Saturday, you see her arm was all black and blue, right?
So what you saying? You think something wrong between her and Jack?
I ain't sure, but you know Jack is a jealous man. I hear him and Cora last Friday. I hear him say he's Junior.
Now you know that ain't true. Cora is a good woman, does mind her business, take care of them churn, and go to church every Sunday. So what you think we should do?
I think we should report Jack, you know. Cora don't say nothing, but silence hides violence, and we don't want to line up in the cemetery.
Not me. I ain't getting in nobody business. Then Jack come after me and I land up next to Cora.
No, man, we could call a text crime stopper. And remember, we can even get some grocery money for our tip.
Remind me again, how does this work?
We can call them in Miami at 328-TIPS or 328-8477. Or when we in the island, call toll free at 300-TIPS or 300-8477. And if you don't have no minutes, use the Crack Crime Bahamas app and we could text them and the messages get on mix up before it leave your phone so nobody can know what you saying.
So what we waiting on then? Let's go earn some grocery money.
This is Guardian Radio, 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
And welcome back to Guardian Radio AM. Of course, I have Aaron Green with me, and we're talking Bahamian poetry, literary works, and festivals, and how we can capitalize on our poetry scene. I see this person text Philip Stubbs is the most published poet. This one published texting Nelson Mackey as the most published poet. Next one is Susan Wallace, is the next most published poet. And no, that's not the answers that we're looking for. And we have one caller on the line, so let's patch the caller through. Go ahead, caller. Can you hear me?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Aaron.
Morning.
I'm here in Georgia, and I have no idea who the most published poet is. But let me go ahead and say this. Aaron, remember Camp Simonet?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Remember, as young teenagers, we used to go outside through the woods, by the salt pond to the beach.
Yeah, where the mosquitoes was.
Right. But I'm saying, as I sit here and I have a lot of friends here in Georgia, when we talk about a Bahamian culture, these are some of the things that a lot of my cohorts want to experience: the sandflies, the mosquitoes, the crabs crawling through the bush. And if we could get back, like the caller was saying, Yamdale, Adelaide, down there by the Heritage Center by Clifton Pier, and to just experience nature. Aaron, do you know we still have our gooseberry? You remember that? By Queen's College?
Yes, and when you cook them, they turn red. Listen,
right.
The idea,
right.
The ideas you just sprung up. You could imagine taking a group of tourists crabbing.
Think about it. And not only crabbing, cooking the crab on sea grape leaf.
Yeah.
See,
yeah.
Some of the things that we probably took for granted as young people is what individuals are trying to experience now. And we're talking about all of the traffic that's flowing through the airport. If we could just, rather than heading east, if we could head west of the airport, I think that's where our gold mine actually lays. In the authentic Bahamian experience, where you're using an outside oven, when you're cooking on coals, when you're boiling fish with a little piece of lime and some goat pepper, and you're eating it off a sea grape leaf. These are some of the things that people are paying exuberant amount of money to experience, and we literally have it there going to the wayside. So that's all I wanted to chime in on. Y'all have a great day, and hope to see you soon, Aaron, when I touch down.
Absolutely, yeah.
Continue with the phone lines. I see one person said Christian Campbell has the most published books. No, that's not the answer we're looking for. But producer Patch, next caller through. Go ahead. Oh, let's go to the next call again. Go ahead, caller. Can you hear me? Oh, you're gone, caller? Okay. So let's continue the conversation, Aaron. I just want to... persons or as texting in with their names, right? And I want to let people know that me, personally, in my collection, right, I have a collection of 121 different poets, Bahamian poets, that I have in my bookcase at this present time. 121 different Bahamians who have published a poetry book. I'm not saying that to show you how many Bahamian poetry books out there, how many Bahamians are actually writing. I personally can say that I have 121 different books by various Bahamians published in the Bahamas. But I see the phones are blinking like crazy. Let's go back to the phones. Go ahead, caller. Can you hear me?
Hi.
Hi, go ahead.
Good morning, Cecil. Good morning, Aaron.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Very interesting conversation here this morning. It's really amazing to hear and to learn some of the fantastic things that we have not touched on or seriously touched on for quite some time. We are losing some of the legends, and I'm going to refer to Vera Chase as a legend for the exemplary work that she has done, and her committee in terms of bringing poetry back to the forefront. I also want to acknowledge Kelsey Cunningham, who also passed within the past few days, and to really celebrate ourselves as Bahamians through our craft, our folklore, and so on and so forth. One of your callers, and this is what prompted me to call, I think it's the caller from Georgia, actually brought up something that is unique, that is not, seems to be not present here right now. And that is some way, somehow, we got to find a way to really create a village, a true, authentic Bahamian village where these experiences that he spoke to can be created and enjoyed. What I mean by that is, I'm not talking about a village whereas in the evening time, it comes alive. I'm talking about almost 18 to 24-hour village where there's something always going on, from performances to not just basically centered at the food per se, but centered more on bringing about, our culture, bringing about the way how we got to where we are today in terms of Bahamians, from our ancestry, the dress, how people came here and brought about certain cultures and certain things that we do here, and so on and so forth. I mean, I could go on and on and on, but it really inspired me to make this call just now. We really missing our golden opportunities. Whereas, the question is still asked, what makes us uniquely Bahamian? And we cannot get a definitive answer on that. What makes us uniquely we as a people? No one can really, truly, or hardly can truly give a definitive definition on what makes us uniquely us. And I think until we are able to discover these things, then we can be able to move ourselves progressively as a people going forward. Thanks for taking my call this morning. Continue the great work, and I will continue to listen. God bless.
Go ahead, producer Patrick, call it through. Go ahead, caller. Caller, can you hear me? Caller going once. Okay, and I'm here sitting down, Aaron, and realized that the first Bahamian to publish a poetry book, black person, published a book little after slavery, 1849 thereabouts. I might have his name, and I was saying, why didn't I use that as a question too, to know if anyone else know that the first persons of African descent to publish a book, Bahamian, what it was his name, and that's something to celebrate too. Thinking of celebrating ourselves through literary works and poetry. It was a poetry book, poems.
Hold it.
Go ahead.
Hold it. That's a good question for next week.
We continue. We should continue. Okay.
Yeah, we got more books to give away.
Yeah, I forget we do have a lot of books. I'll hold that till next week and have people research that, and I'll get even if because his descendants are still here in the Bahamas, so that'll be interesting to go with it. I see people saying that James Catlin is the most published book. No, it's not. And then one saying Patricia Miracolis is the most published poet. No, it's not. But we'll continue the conversation. Go ahead, Aaron.
I just want to mention a poet's name, not the most published, Michelle Hanna. But I mention her name because Michelle Hanna is a poet, and she has spent a large portion of her time and resources organizing spaces for poets to perform in. Right? So not just pushing herself forward, but ensuring that once a week, Michelle Hanna had an open mic in various places across New Providence to ensure that poets would have a place to poem.
And I want to know how important is having a space. But we have a caller here, and then I want you to respond to that. How important is having making spaces for poets to perform and Bahamians in general? Go ahead, caller. Can you hear me?
Your question is for Aaron.
Yes, sir.
All right. You mentioned Gambia, yes?
Yeah.
You said you need tourist attraction. Someplace that tourists can come and enjoy themselves. You mentioned Foxhill, you mentioned Adelaide. You ain't said nothing about Gambia.
Let me tell you the idea I have for Gambia as well. It's a similar camping idea. The dynamic is slightly different. Would you see them big hills in Gambia? Them big hills? Are you gonna get Chester robots from Chickchani run obstacle course? They do abseiling and climbing rock. And they're gonna tell Chester, we need a obstacle course, a short physical excursion activity in Gambia to take people from the heights of the rock down to the shores of the water. That's like a quick idea, but I would put up small, tiny homes in Gambia for Airbnb style, camping style experiences. Tiny homes in a small cultural village like the caller from Georgia reference, and then Jeff solidified. I would put up tiny homes in that community and then use the landscape to build activities for tourists.
Okay. And I'm still getting texts in who's the most published port. Nothing right as yet. But call us and we'll see what the answer is. Definitely we have one more prize. And of course, we'll be giving out prizes again next week. The phone is just lit up again. So let's see who this person is. Producer Patch, I'll call her through. Go ahead, caller. Caller, can you hear me?
Is it Susan Wallace?
No, Susan Wallace is the most published port at this present time.
Obadiah Smith?
You'll be able to give two answers at the same time. I hear him. I don't know how you're able to sneak in the next answer at the same time. But that is correct. That is correct. Oh, you're gone. You got to call back. I didn't expect you to hang him. Call out, just call back and identify yourself and leave your name with the producer. Right? We have 30 seconds, Aaron. Go ahead.
Tell them the real answer because I barely heard it. Tell the audience the answer.
Obadiah Michael Smith is the most published poet at this present time. I think he has a total of about 36 different books at this present time. Okay?
Yeah,
and that caller who called and give his name, make sure you call back and speak to the producer so we can write down your name and have your prize available at the door.
Mr. Newry, I went to the rainforest in Suriname to a place called Gunzi Village. And I don't know if these people are Bahamian or not, but they put on one show for us in the middle of the bush in a maroon village. And I had the time of my life. What I'm saying to the Bahamian people is we live on the verge of the bush in the city and we could make it look pretty. We got things to do, man. We got the resources.
Okay. And this is being Guardian Radio AM with C.A. Newry, and of course Aaron Green will join me. We have a lot of books to give away, so we'll be giving it out next week. Have a wonderful day.